to The Red Menace. We're a comedy news podcast bringing you the latest and greatest news from inside, sort of mostly. My name's Chris Bolson.
And I'm Alison Hoare.
We got a pretty big, exciting announcement today, Alison, which is that the movie Artemis Fowl is now out on the Disney Plus streaming service.
It sure is. It sure is.
Praise the Disney overlords. We're going to replace all of the cops with Disney cops, and it's going to be exactly the same.
Of course.
So you and I have both read these wonderful books by Owen. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Owen. It's just
Owen Colfer.
He's Irish, so the name is written in the most convoluted way, but it's pronounced sense. Owen.
I pronounced it Owen my entire childhood.
Me too. Or like Eowyn.
Eowyn, that was another good option.
Eowyn,
there was a lot of
Owen.
It evolved over time. So now his
it's
name
like
is
Hermione. You know, we don't speak of the author of that book series.
No, by she
anymore.
Who must not be named.
She who has been long cancelled.
Let's just call her the Big Turf. I think that's a fun.
Good idea.
The Big Turf.
You know, for a long time, I pronounced her name as Hermione.
Hermione.
Hermione was
how
I
Hermione sounds like Drummoyne, which is a suburb of Sydney.
Yeah, exactly. Hermione. Guinea, I also pronounced.
Guinea is very good. I always said Harry and Roan.
Yeah, right. Hari.
Sorry, and his friend Roan.
Don't you mean Ralph? As a
yes, my favourite character, Ralph the abusive redhead.
For those of you who don't know about J.K. Rowling getting cancelled for being a TERF on Twitter, another famous British TERF, Graham Linehan, came out of the woodworks to defend
Nothing
her.
from my childhood is sacred, is what I've learned.
No, exactly. Came out to defend her and did in fact talk about the really popular characters in the Harry Potter series, as we know are Harry, Hermione and Ralph. Yeah.
Hot take, I think that Ralph would have been a more likeable character if his name was actually Ralph. So,
Ralph kind of seems quite lovable. Maybe it's because I associate it with the kid from The Simpsons.
And everybody loves him.
But at the same time, Chris, Ralph's dad is a cop, which means perhaps Ralph is cancelled now.
That's true. Are you cancelled if your dad's a cop? If you don't disown your dad, I think, then you are cancelled.
But would Ralph disown his dad? That's the question.
I legitimately believe he's too stupid to. So
I legitimately believe that too. Now, back on track. Artemis Fowl series was a good book series, and as far as I know, the author hasn't come out as a big TERF.
No,
so,
as far as we're aware, Owen is not a big TERF yet.
And if he is a big TERF, he's chosen not to say anything online because he wants to keep selling books and not lose all his fans.
History has taught me that if this new film franchise, Artemis Fowl, is very successful, he's becoming a big TERF is inevitable. Like, that's just the trajectory of authors.
Yeah.
But I feel like we should explain what Artemis Fowl, Owen's good books are. Because other people may not have read this fairly, not niche, but like it was a generational thing, you know?
Yeah, it was. I don't think it transcended generation as much as like Harry Potter and stuff did. It was very much product of its time.
Yeah, if you were born between like 88 and 95 and you were kind of a dork, you read Artemis Fowl.
And it was kind of sick. It was like the whole anti-hero trope for kids.
Yeah. So it was about how old is he? Like 11?
He's 11 in the first book.
He's an 11-year-old boy. He's very rich. He's Irish. He's deeply shitty.
Yes. His dad is a criminal mastermind.
and Artemis Fowl is his name. And just based on that, you know that he sucks major ass.
Absolutely.
And if I recall correctly, the plot of the first book is that he kidnaps a fairy and holds her for ransom.
Exactly. That's exactly because he's trying to find his dad as well.
Yeah. Is that in the book? I don't remember that.
Oh, no, perhaps that's in the second book. Is his dad goes missing. His dad's abducted, and then he needs the help of the fairies to help find his abducted criminal mastermind dad.
Yeah, and I believe what the movie has done is they've Dark Towered it, where they've kind of smushed the first few quite dense books together into a single movie with a 90-minute runtime, which bodes really well.
It bodes incredibly well, considering there was a lot of stuff. It's not like a series of unfortunate events where the books are actually quite short, you know. No,
they're full stories.
You could read a series of unfortunate events in like one, couple of hour sitting. Artemis Fowl, no, there's a lot of stuff that happens, a lot of world building that happens.
Like, I don't know how well it'd hold up as an adult, but I know that, like, 12-year-old me, when I read that shit...
12-year-old me loved that shit.
It was like the Hurt Locker to adult me. It was just, like
lapping
riveting.
up that milk, you know?
Yeah, it was just, like, gripping kid kidnaps fairy political horseplay.
Exactly.
You know what the biggest warning sign for me, though, was, Alison? Josh Gad's in this flick.
Yeah, I did see that.
Hot take, Josh Gad, I hate. And I've never seen... Josh Gad, the only thing he hasn't actively ruined that I've watched is New Girl. And I didn't like him in New Girl. I just liked the show well enough that he didn't ruin it.
Right. Now, the other thing that, like, for me was also like, I don't know what they're doing with this story, aside from the fact that it was all mashed together. Now, this is getting very niche into Artemis Fowl fandom.
The law.
You know, like, how they... Disney is, like, one of those companies which is very well known for, like,
they're the company. They're the one company.
Exactly. They do a lot of, I want to say, like, diversity casting, but they don't actually do anything with it aside from just like, okay, we have put this person as this person without any, like, actual explanation or, like, consideration of the story, right?
And then they'll edit all of the black people out of the trailers in China.
Exactly. So, you know, with, like, if you recall in the first book, part of the whole plot with Holly was like, there was that kind of feminism angle, right, where she was the first female police officer hired in this department of the
she is cancelled now,
police.
obviously, but please continue.
Right. She was the first police officer hired in the fairy police. And so there was that whole angle of, like, where that idea was explored in that book quite a lot, you know.
Yes.
About, like, how she was breaking down those barriers and how, like, she faced discrimination from the superiors because of her gender. And so Disney's like, we want to be feminist. What we're going to do is we're going to cut out that whole story which explores that idea and just make the police chief a woman.
That's pretty sneaky, Disney. But Alison, you see,
I don't know if I haven't watched the movie. I don't know. They could still explore that, but it seems weird if you want to, like, make that plot. You've got that plot.
It's just there for you.
It's just there for you. You can work in with that feminism angle, but instead of that, you decide to go, no, we want to be feminist, so we're not going to explore that idea.
I did not remember that subplot. I'm glad it's there, and it's proven to me that Owen Colfer is a feminist king.
Maybe, who knows?
We hope. We haven't looked into it, but for now...
if you want to cancel Owen Colfer...
for now, the official... the position of this podcast is that Owen Colfer is a feminist king.
I should reiterate that I haven't read these books since I was, like, 12 years old. So this could be me, like...
It's a very real possibility that every second word she says is the N-word or something. Like, we have no way of knowing. Who? Oh, I meant the character of Holly.
The character. Well, see, here's the thing, right? I haven't read it since I was 12 years old, but that's one of the plot points that stuck with me. So it could be just me projecting with, like, my 2020 mind onto that. But it seems weird that Disney didn't go with that and they just decided, let's just make the police chief a woman because diversity.
See, the plot points that stuck with me were that this kid... lead character who I, as an adult now, understand sucks very deeply.
Oh, he does suck everyone in that story sucks very deeply.
But when I was 12, he was a cool dude.
He was a cool kid.
But because he was cool in that way of, like, he's cool because he's smart and, like,
he's
that...
Cool. And, like, he's just also really edgy because he does crimes.
And when you're an edgy, nerdy teen, that is some validating shit.
You know, one thing, though, that, still stands up in 2020, I would say, is the fact that this is, like, a white people crime family that doesn't get any repercussions legally from the law enforcement. And that's true. That's,
in the third one, doesn't he break into, like, a corporation and steal their thing or something? Doesn't he, like, ransack a skyscraper? I don't remember. But
all I know is that in one of the books they introduced a female character who then immediately became the love interest for Artemis Fowl. And a lot of my...
Feminist king Owen Colfer.
A lot of my interest in that series waned about that point. Because it was like... Up until that point, the story didn't have any, like, romance plots. It was just kind of like... here's the story.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of were like, oh shit, let's give him a hetero love interest. Just
Well, he's an 11-year-old boy, Alison. He needs to fuck. That's what, that's what Disney taught me.
Oh god.
I'm sure they'll adapt that book in its entirety.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because they have to have the love story.
Yeah. But I'm defo going to watch this movie. It's got Judi Dench in an elf costume, and it looks so dumb.
See, Judi Dench is the one they made the police chief.
That is...
Which I can get behind. I can get behind Judi Dench being classed as a police chief, but I'm not sure like how it...
Judi Dench's last two flicks are Artemis Fowl and Cats. What the fuck is up, Judi Dench?
Poor Judi Dench.
Gonna watch
I really
Artemis
wanted
Fowl
that movie
and
to
then
be
watch Cats
good,
again.
but yeah, look.
I just don't think it would translate well to film. Like, I feel like a lot of kids' media like that works better in a kid imagination and just looks deeply goofy on screen.
Right. Now, actually, though, I must say, I did like the Netflix adaptation of A Series of Unfortunate Events. I thought it was quite good because the author was the one who was working with the team to change the story to work better in that format. So things were added to the story, but with the,
But it got the
vibe.
It got the vibe right.
It got the vibe exactly. The aesthetic was good. The aesthetic was good.
Do you have a story for me, Alison?
Let's get into the news. The news is it's a really tricky space to navigate at the moment, as I'm sure you were.
Fully bad.
But why don't we start with something just to cleanse the palate, something nice and wholesome.
Oh, hell yeah, I love that.
So let's talk about fish love, I suppose.
Fish love, okay, interesting.
Not like sexy fish love, because that's
like fish,
not
fish
wholesome.
romance.
Yeah, it's like fish
No,
platonic
sex is
love.
a sin, obviously, but
This
fish
is
platonic love I can get behind.
Fish platonic love.
Okay.
And I'm reading from ABC News. It says, Cairns Aquarium's COVID-19 closure prompts school kids to write to Chang the Lonely Groper.
What a name that is.
Yeah. Well, I guess his name is Chang, but I guess he's lonely and he's a groper.
It's kind of like the character of Chang from Community, because he was a lonely groper as well.
But a groper in another sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, a Queensland groper left reeling, by the way, I just thought I'd throw that in there, like,
Yep. No,
point that out.
I
Thanks, ABC News.
appreciate it. I say Stoneface.
There's quite a bit in this first sentence, so just bear with me. Mm-hmm. A Queensland groper left reeling after coronavirus...
I'll keep you on the line.
After coronavirus restrictions forced the closure of his aquarium, has fallen hook, line and sinker for a group of school children.
All right, that could have been worse.
It could have been worse. It's ABC, so if they're going to use a pun, it's going to be at least a little tasteful.
It's functional.
Functional, exactly.
And it's a quirky story, so okay, fine.
It is a quirky story, exactly. Chang's heart sank when the Cairns Aquarium in the state's far north closed its doors in March. He even stopped eating in the initial weeks of the lockdown, his keepers said.
Aww.
They said he missed the human interaction of seeing thousands of faces pass by his tank each day. Fucking this guy. This fish is like...
This is a crazy extrovert fish.
I had pet fish, and as far as I could tell, the fish literally only wanted food.
As far as I was aware, I thought fish did not know you existed. Like
my fish did. When I came in and I stood next to their tank, they went crazy because I assumed they assumed that food was coming.
That makes sense, actually.
They could see a big shadowy thing, and they're like, "Fuck, that's the delivery of food, and I like food."
My cat Tim, my new cat Tiny Tim, who I love, my beautiful son, he has learnt that the kitchen is where food comes from. So whenever I go to make myself food, he decides, oh yeah, I'm going to hop up on that kitchen counter, have a little sniff, have a little taste. Maybe I'll get a treat from Dad. And he never does, but he's persistent. I'll give him that.
Oh, one day he will. One day he'll get a treat.
I'm trying very hard to not reward bad behavior, but it's challenging.
See, I think that's the hardest part about having a pet, is that some of the bad behavior is actually quite cute.
It's very cute, but then he starts to lick my sandwiches,
That's not ideal. Anyway.
It's not nice, but I've already crossed the threshold, or if he's got a few licks on it, I'll be like, that's fine to eat.
Just a couple of cat licks. Our cat used to do that when I made Vegemite toast. As soon as you put the Vegemite on, and then you turn around, and then you come back, and the cat's licking all the Vegemite off the toast.
That's bizarre.
Cats like Vegemite.
I don't believe cats can digest salt, so that's not good.
But they love salt.
I got a tin of tuna yesterday to make a sandwich for my lunch, and he mewed at me for a solid 15 minutes afterwards. He was like, "What the fuck are you doing with that when you could be giving it to me, you piece of shit?"
Exactly. But this fish obviously has the same human attachments as your cat.
Yeah.
After reading about Chang's plight on the ABC, children from Torbanley State School on the Fraser Coast set about writing him letters and drawing self-portraits to make him happy. Oh, it's very, very
That's
beautiful.
So sweet.
We received this package out of nowhere, and it was addressed to Chang the Lonely Groper. Aquarium Chief Executive Daniel Lepenick said,
"Maybe we should change the name of these fish. I feel like we could just add an extra vowel in there and it would be much better."
I do like, though, that they've got this... They did actually receive a box, and they've got like the picture of the address here, and it's got the address of the aquarium, and then it says Chang the Lonely Groper, comma, Cairns Aquarium, comma, because that's part of the address line, it's Cairns Aquarium. The letter was specifically addressed to the fish.
It was pacifically addressed.
The fact that kids took time in their classroom to draw these pictures, and the fact that we could put the pictures up and make Chang feel better is just beautiful. Year 1 teacher Dee McRae said many of the children could identify with Chang's sudden isolation, having themselves been away from their friends for weeks amid COVID-19 restrictions. Their lives have changed as well, and I think many of it's already said there. They wanted to bring him a little bit of joy. The letter echoed that statement. When we couldn't come back to school, some of us were feeling gloomy too, but we are really glad to be back at our classroom. Things will get back to normal, everything will be all right, and you will be joyful again, like us, Mr. Fish.
It does sound a little bit 1984-y, but I get that that's kid speak and that's okay. Follow up. I love the concept of, I'm going to bring some joy into someone's life. I'm going to send them a picture of myself. That's very
that's
good
also kid logic, I would say.
If you're ever sad, Alison, I'm just going to send you a selfie.
Some of these pictures are not very good, but if I was a fish... if I was a fish, I'm sure, like, I'm not really that used to seeing art, so anything would be like, this is good.
He'd just be like, oh, it's impressionist.
Like, he looks at this one that kind of looks like a gingerbread man with a ghost face, and he's like, that's cool.
That has a lot of depth.
I've never seen that before. Yeah.
I think that this fish should be the judge of all art, and that its response to all art is going to be, oh, interesting. That's pretty cool.
That's cool. Like, he's just like a really, really, really positive art judge.
It's going to be wild the day he sees one. He's like, you know what? Not that one. No, thank you.
No. And that would be the Mona Lisa or something like that.
Forehead's too big. Don't like it.
No. I'm just going to read this last little bit here, which I think is quite a nice sentiment. It said the aquarium had received many emails from around the world asking about the fish. They could be reassured that Chang was eating normally again, he added. I think people see Chang as being emblematic of the loneliness that can happen to people and animals during this crisis, Mr. Lepenick said.
Chang is a metaphor.
Chang is a metaphor for all of us, Chris.
We are all Chang.
We are all Chang the Lonely Groper, except hopefully Groper in the fish sense and not in the other sense.
Yeah, the episode's obviously called Chang the Lonely Groper just because that's such an excellent combination of words.
It is such an excellent combination of words.
I don't know how I'll visualize that. Maybe I'll just draw a creepy looking fish. Can I bring you a story? This one was sent to me by my dad.
Thanks, Chris's dad, for your constant contributions.
This is in WA Today. It's written by Kate Headley from June 5th.
Okay.
Bizarre scenes in tiny Western Australian town as sovereign nation attempts to overthrow government.
Ooh, I like this.
Thank you. 4 people were taken into police custody following a bizarre incident in the WA wheatbelt town of York on Friday morning. About 8 a.m, members of New Westralia...
Right, okay, I see where this is going.
An organisation claiming to be a legitimate sovereign authority acting in the interests of the people native of the dependencies of Western Australia
Sure.
broke down the door of the historic courthouse and took up residence before the police arrived and made arrests.
Ugh. Love that.
A series of live videos shared on Facebook showed the door of the National Trust building, which was built in the 1840s, being smashed and the alarm prompting the attention of a local security guard. Referring to their actions as a peaceful protest, two men are shown praying before their sit-in, an apparent attempt to declare a sovereign nation was interrupted by police. As a Christian nation, New Australia serves to be a world-class destination for spiritual vitality, enlightenment, meditation, wonder, and expression.
I don't like this anymore.
Yeah, at first you're like, this seems cool, it seems
Cool. And then
timely,
you're like,
fight the
this
power.
kind of seems a little bit like
It's like they
like
kind
a
of...
sex cult, maybe.
It's like they're trying to create the Christian ethno-state of New Australia, Alison, and I don't see anything wrong with that.
Is it Christian, though, or is it New Age?
Well, okay, so it's spiritual vitality,
A
vitality
lot of
can
these
be...
words kind of sound like New Age, anti-vax.
It does say meditation, and I've never meditated in church. Expressionment on the great adventure of life, the group's website reads. New Australia has a website, so that's pretty good.
Okay.
Prior to breaking into the old courthouse, the small group raised their own flag, which appeared to have similarities to the St. George Cross, to replace the satanic Australian flag.
Well, calling something satanic does sound very Christian.
It sounds very Christian. I want to know if they have, like, Catholic robes. No, he is wearing a wife-beater singlet and skinny jeans, which is the New Australia version.
How is New Australia spelled?
New Westralia. So W-E-S-T.
I thought it was two words.
No. New space Westralia. I assume you're looking up whether or not this is a cult, which is as you are wont to do. I'm going to read this.
Look,
Yeah.
you keep reading.
Yeah,
and
I'll
look,
give you some research
later,
time.
I'm going to have a little bit of a read because this sounds fascinating.
Right. Throughout the group's attempts to establish themselves as the proper governing body of law for Western Australia, one of the members posted to social media, "I don't have time to answer questions as we are under siege at the current moment in York, Australia, and staying strong in our court. Please do your research as much as possible, good people. I can only show you the way. We must all attempt our own escape, and everything is in play to do so. Trust me."
Christ on a bike.
He sounds like the Joker.
He's certainly playing himself as a villain.
Yeah. 3 men and 1 woman were expected to face court in Northam on Friday
Oh, yeah,
afternoon
it says,
on
okay, as
charges.
a Christian nation, New Australia, blah, blah, blah. Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know whether they're a horny Christian nation.
Well, one of them is probably Jesus. And
The guy in the
by that
skinny
I mean
jeans had a major
probably-
Jesus vibe.
He probably hints to the other members of New Australia that he is Jesus, but he doesn't outwardly say it, you know?
Yeah.
It's probably like, some people say that Jesus is coming again and he will wear skinny jeans from JJ's and tie his hair in a man bun.
I think he just drops...
Like I do.
He drops casual, like he'll open a fridge full of bottles of water and be like, "Anyone want some wine?"
Oh, wait. Here you go. Have some water. Wink.
He'll be like, "So I was walking back from New Zealand the other day.
Just like, you can't outwardly claim you're Jesus because then everyone would be like, maybe I'm in a cult. But if you, drop little hints and you have everyone, collectively come to the assumption that you are Jesus, and they're like, look, mate, look, Chris, I believe that you are Jesus. You're like, well, I'm not going to confirm or deny the claims that I'm Jesus.
One of his fellow New Australians starts making a sourdough, and he just points at his own body and says, "I got all the bread I need right here."
Exactly.
That's all the Jesus jokes I could think of.
I
But
can't think of any more. We joke about Jesus far too much in this podcast.
Well, I mean, he is our Lord and Saviour, so obviously we have to.
Right. We're both good Catholics.
Good Catholic kids.
Good Catholics. We have to pepper in a few Jesus jokes here and there.
Do you have another story for me, please, Alison?
Okay, well, I'm going to bring a story from the Advocate, which is a newspaper from Tasmania, and it's been really a struggle this week to find stories, Chris, as I'm sure you can probably relate to.
You don't have my dad, so...
I don't have your dad, and there's been a lot of crap going down in the world right now, as we can say.
Just a bit, yeah.
So when I clicked open on this story, generally the story will have... This is why I was a little bit confused for a moment there, Chris. Generally, the story will have a picture which is related to the story that you're reading.
That's the traditional approach, yes.
That's the traditional approach. But the picture here is, in fact, a headline video, which is some really poorly rendered Mayan people on a really poorly rendered Mayan city. And I'm like, have I clicked the right thing?
Okay.
Because that's not what
I'm
the story that I'm looking at is.
Thing that the Advocates decided to put up. But let's hear about what the story is, and I'll see if I can make the connection to the Mayan
There's no connection, really.
Give me time. I'll figure it out.
Okay, right. Anyway, the story, there's not that much of it. This is just a bit of real estate that has slipped into my radar.
Yep.
So in case you've wanted to escape from what's happening in Sydney and you want to buy a property, there's one going in Western Tasmania for cheap. So I'm going to read from here. This is shared to me yesterday by my friend Jossie. It said, site of the Royal Hotel at Linda on the Lyell Highway for sale for the cost of a Sydney car park.
Oh. Wait. Wait. The price of a Sydney car park, or they want to trade a Sydney car park for one?
Well, the price, I would imagine. I mean, if you own a car park complex, I'm sure they'll...
I think real estate should work on a barter system.
Good idea. Maybe that would solve a lot of the problems. Just start trading.
I would like this car space. In exchange, I will give you my living room and a blowjob. Thank you very much. And that's how you get property in 2020.
Exactly. That's how we solve the problems with the property market, is we just start, trading one building for another building. Now, this one, unfortunately, this article doesn't have the full story, but I'm going to, bring it back a little bit because there's some history here.
Okay.
So this actual building, well, the property, it's just basically the shell of the hotel, which has burnt down or something, I assume.
Oh.
And there's no inside. It's like ruins. It's literally ruins with a fence around it and then a little shed next to it.
Okay.
But I mean, if you would like to live there,
so it's like a set from a Walking Dead episode or something like that.
Exactly. One of the West Coast's most recognisable landmarks is up for sale. The town of Linda on the Lyell Highway is largely recognised as a ghost town and has become a destination for history and nature buffs. So it's a whole ghost town, and by town it's one building.
I'm intrigued, I'll admit.
But it used to be a cafe, but it's been rezoned to be residential. So it said, but for a period in the 2010s, the current owner had transformed the site of the Royal Hotel into a bustling cafe. They have since moved to the northwest coast and closed the cafe about 5 years ago, but they are now offering another person the chance. The property, including the cafe and the ruin of the hotel, is on sale for just $149,000, Christopher.
I mean, that is still a high number of dollars. It's a lot less than other properties, though, so that's something.
It's a lot less. I mean, it's $149,000. It's not bad.
It's quite cheap as far as properties go. It's more dollars than I have.
Right.
But quite cheap as far as properties go.
I'm not sure what you can do with this, though, but, you can make...
I really would love, and if anyone wants to kickstart me the $15,000 deposit for this, I would just love to turn this into a shitty pub that all of the history and nature nerds can come and have a beer in after they've finished looking at ghosts or whatever.
That's a good idea. You just milk the ghosts angle a lot,
yeah,
right? And you turn the whole thing into ghost tourism, but you don't sell it like that because otherwise ghost tourists will not come.
Downstairs is a pub, upstairs haunted house.
Right, but it has to be just a normal house which is haunted.
Yeah, no, it's an actually haunted house.
And what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to pump...
You can pay to stay a night there and we lock the door from the outside.
I'm going to pump a little bit of carbon monoxide in into the grounds so that people go, not enough to kill anyone. I don't want to murder people.
No, we will have them sign a waiver that spookily says it'll take years off your life.
Perhaps, like, if I murdered someone, then I could get some more ghosts for real here.
True. That's a business expense.
Right, exactly. It is a business expense. But if you put a little bit of carbon monoxide, just drip feed it in there, people will just start imagining that there's ghosts there.
The beer has a little bit of chloroform in it, just like a little bit.
Just a little bit. And you may put a little bit of, like, hallucinogenic mushroom oil or something in there as well.
Oh, no, all the food is just, like, there's an acid tab in every burger. Like, obviously.
Like you're making the burger, you, like, slap down the patty, put the acid tab, cheese slice, onion jam.
All of the mushrooms that we put on the food are psychedelic mushrooms. We have we've got a cupboard that we're growing psychedelic mushrooms in upstairs.
God. Sounds great.
We've got a whole setup.
You just have to pay off the Tasmanian police to not raid and find all the drugs.
We'll just pay them off in haunted house visits and mushrooms. They'll think
We'll pay them off in acid tabs.
The way you've pitched this to me, Alison, it doesn't sound like there's much of a police presence there because there's not a lot of people present.
Well, it is a ghost town, so...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there might be police ghosts who I'm sure
you could make up your own police service there if you wanted to.
No, I think that this pub in Tasmania is going to be the start of the abolitionist police movement.
Right.
So I am going to kickstart that with my ghost pub. So you're welcome, everybody.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea, I think. You can start the police abolitionist movement, or alternatively, I forgot where I was going with that. But apparently, like, I was like, okay,
Smooth.
Well, the only reason that, you would want to buy this is because you want to do ghost hunting.
Yes.
Like, there's no other reason to buy this.
Well, I don't want to hunt ghosts. I kind of want to grow ghosts. Like, I want to create a ghost reserve.
Yeah, exactly. Now, look, there's a little bit of history here which has been shared about on the property listing, in fact.
I hope there's a lot of murders.
Well, I would hope so too, but unfortunately, I don't know if there was that many murders.
Damn it.
Which isn't great. So
we can fix that.
Well, sure. This is the information. Let me read this here. God. Okay. A short walk from Gormanstown is the abandoned community of Linda, where the skeleton of the Royal Hotel still stands. Linda supported the North Mount Lyell mine, now redundant, and was the terminus for the company's railway line to Pillinger. It had a reputation as a rough and tumble town and was the site of a brawl between Italian...
Brawl, my friend Brawl.
A site of a brawl between Italian immigrants and locals known as Britishers, which saw one man fatally stabbed.
You can just call them wankers. That's okay.
Yeah, basically. So if you would like to buy this town and reenact Italian versus British brawls there...
It has a beautiful history of racial violence. We love it.
Well... You love to see it. Which is kind of a good setting
for Ghost Town.
For tone-deaf ghost hunting TV shows.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to buy property in Tasmania, there's one up for grabs here. If you decide on our business idea, then you do have to pay us royalties.
Oh, visit TM.
Exactly. I've got a patent on our idea.
I've bought the URL already.
Exactly.
Can I bring you a story from 7news.com.au?
Of course you can.
Submitted to me once again by my daddy.
Thanks, Chris's dad.
It's from the lifestyle section. Hand sanitizer mix-up leaves Australian gin customer sick.
Oh, I think you sent this through to me.
Did I?
I don't know. Someone else did.
Someone must.
Did.
I wouldn't if I was saving this shit.
But it was a good story. Hold on to it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to read it. An unfortunate labelling mix-up at an Australian gin distillery has left one customer sick after she mistakenly drank hand sanitizer.
Yikes-a-rooney.
Yeah, I mean, it's got alcohol in it.
It's not ideal.
Apollo Bay Distillery has issued a recall after 9 bottles of hand sanitizer, incorrectly labelled as gin, were sold at the Great Ocean Road Brew House in Victoria.
That's really good.
It's understood that the 700ml bottles of sanitizer, which contained glycerol and hydrogen peroxide, were labelled as SS Casino Dry Gin. The bottles were on sale for roughly 48 hours, from 5 p.m. on Friday, June 5th. Food Standards Australia says glycerol and hydrogen peroxide may cause injury/illness if consumed.
Yes.
And the possible side effects include nausea, headaches, dizziness, bloating, vomiting, thirst, and diarrhea. I like that they just sort of chuck bloating in there.
Yeah, I mean, everything can cause bloating, essentially, but, whatever.
While only a small number of incorrectly labelled bottles were sold to the public, it was enough for one customer to become ill. So there's an image of the bottle here. It looks like a bottle of gin. It's got that kind of like vaguely Soviet branding on it that most bottles of gin have. It's a glass bottle. Unclear why on earth hand sanitizer would be contained within it. Unless it's hand sanitizer you pour out of like a ketchup bottle onto your hand. Which seems wild to me. Artisanal hand sanitizer.
Actually, speaking of like bottle mix-ups, is I have like, sometimes I get joint pain, so I use Deep Heat, which is like a rub that you put on your skin, which makes it, I don't know.
It smells nasty, feels good.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, the tube does look a lot like a toothpaste tube.
Oh, Alison.
I didn't do it.
Thank
but
God.
Occasionally, like, I reach into my medicine cabinet and I grab, like, the tube and I'm like, wait a second, this is Deep Heat, not the toothpaste.
Has it ever made it to the toothbrush?
It's never made it to the toothbrush. I think I'd have to burn the toothbrush if that happened.
It would certainly have an odour about it.
Why does Deep Heat come in the exact same tube as toothpaste?
Because it'd be fucking funny if you did it, though.
I mean, I feel like the company that makes Deep Heat is just like on the long game prank. They're like, oh, someone's going to put this on their toothbrush.
Well,
it's going to be
here's
funny.
The thing. Most people not supposed to swallow toothpaste, so they're not going to swallow the Deep Heat. So I don't think it's going to kill anybody.
It'll just go in their mouth and make it feel real funny.
It's going to make their mouth feel very odd. It's going to taste quite bad, I assume, but your mouth is going to feel pretty funny afterwards.
Your mouth is going to be a little bit burny.
At the same time, though, it might be like a numbing sensation, so it might be like you just did a bunch of cocaine, but way cheaper. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that might be ideal. It might be ideal.
Deep Heat could be the next big drug. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. You never know.
We're going to have to criminalise Deep Heat. Responding to the recall on the Apollo-based Facebook page, one consumer said she had to take medication shortly after drinking a glass of SS Casino Dry Gin. I do that too, but that's just aspirin. She believes her friend had purchased the bottle during the relevant time frame. Had one glass of this at lunchtime and had a really bad headache and felt nauseous about 1 hour after and had to take nausea tablets and Nurofen, the customer wrote. Thought I was getting unwell. I had no idea until now. If it doesn't taste right, don't drink it. Be careful.
I mean, gin does taste... I have never tasted it. But, like, a lot of those, like, alcohols that are, like, spirit alcohols...
They
aren't they supposed to taste good? Do anyone enjoy the taste of them?
Cheap gin traditionally does not taste good. I've always thought that was part of the appeal. That's why you mix it with other good-tasting things like tonic water, so that it then becomes more palatable. Some spirits taste good. I never understood the concept that spirits could taste good.
Sure.
But when I was in student housing, I lived in a studio for like 2 years, and then I moved into a two-bedder, so I had like a roommate that was allocated by student housing. This is going somewhere, I promise.
Sure.
My roommate at the time was a guy named, I think his name was Hussein, actually.
Okay.
And he was a player, Hussein was. He worked at businesses, brought a different girl home every night kind of deal. One time I was sitting in the living room watching YouTube videos on my Xbox, and he brought a girl into his room, which was right behind the couch, so super cool for me.
Sure.
And once he was finished, he sent me a message that said, "Hey, can you phone me in 5 minutes? I need to get her out of here." So So that's the
Wow.
that's the kind of guy Hussein was. But he one time, I believe as a thank you for that incident, he did give me a glass of his very, very expensive vodka that he had. And up till that point, I hadn't realized that vodka could taste good. But it turns out it can.
Wow.
I've never had vodka that tastes good again since. Probably never will.
No.
But vodka can taste good.
Well, there you go. I've learned something today.
Yeah, and it only took me like 3 full minutes to teach you about it.
It was like when I discovered that, this is a tangent, we'll go back to the story in a second. It was like that I discovered that tea can taste good without sugar and milk if you're buying tea that's not like Lipton.
Yeah, if you buy good tea, it tastes good.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's weird how that works. Another Facebook user commented that the liquid tasted horrible, which again is on brand.
Sure.
A spokesperson for Apollo Bay Distillery says it has tracked down 4 of the 9 affected bottles, adding that it understands they're not toxic. Authorities have warned consumers the product should not be consumed.
I do find it quite funny that all of these people, right, they've bought these bottles of gin and they're like, this kind of tastes shit, but...
You'd think you'd be able to smell, like, that it smells like
I'm just going to drink it because, like, I don't want to seem like an uncultured person who thinks, like, an independent brewery's gin is shit. So I'm going to have to pretend to like it.
Also, I've used a lot of hand sanitizers in my time. Traditionally, the viscosity is different from gin.
The viscosity is different.
In that there is some viscosity, whereas gin is just essentially nasty water.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make much sense to me.
Thick gin?
Thick gin.
Thick gin. Yuck.
Oh, this gin's it's kind of lumpy, isn't it?
It's kind of thick. It's kind of viscous.
Kind of thick gin, lumpy, chunky gin.
I feel like the viscosity would be noticeable.
Yeah, just Jello gin. Well, that's what a Jello shot is. Maybe they thought it was just like they did that before.
Pre-made Jello shots, perhaps.
Those are just hand sanitizer. A spokesperson for Apollo Bay Distillery has urged any customer who has purchased the incorrectly labelled bottle to contact them, because there are still 5 of these out in the wild.
I mean, it's a collector's item by this stage.
Okay, so there's a bottle of the hand sanitizer. It is the same bottle, and the logo looks nigh on indistinguishable, and this distillery does make hand sanitizer, which leads me to think that it's just the bad bottles of gin, that they're like, well, it'll still work.
I mean, it'll taste shit, but it's going to sanitize those hands well good.
They're going to be hella clean. They're going to smell like gin, but like it'll get the job done. That's all of the story. This just seems like a fuck up on a conceptual level.
It does, yeah. I mean, actually, before, like, when the COVID crisis was kind of, like, big off its, fresh new thing, a lot of, like, alcohol distilleries were changing to manufacturing hand sanitizer just for, like, for the business. But this kind of shows what the, like, inevitable problem was going to be.
I wouldn't think that'd be necessary for their business, because I've been drinking a lot of alcohol during this time. So, like...
Yeah, true.
I think I'd be keeping them afloat. But anyway.
Well, perhaps.
Do you have a story?
Yeah. Shall we jump into politics for a second?
Yeah, right, fine.
Not really. But this, as you know, our Prime Minister... This is a fun story, though. Our Prime Minister recently announced a new home builders grant, which will give people money to do renovations on their house if they're already rich and own a...
He's really taking from the poor and giving to the rich, and we just love to see that.
Exactly. But anyway, he was doing a press announcement. He was doing a press conference to announce this new grant, and it was rudely interrupted. Anyway, I'm reading from ABC News, and it says, Scott Morrison's home builder announcement interrupted as New South Wales man urges media to get off his grass. Media and Scott Morrison, I should say. The Great Australian Dream has long included a house, a picket fence, and a healthy patch of lawn. But as the Prime Minister was encouraging Australians to invest in their homes, the great source of pride was forgotten by some. On Thursday morning, Scott Morrison was mid-sentence at the launch of his government's home builder scheme, designed to stimulate the construction industry and keep builders employed, when an irritated voice interrupted. "Can everyone get off the grass, please?" "Come on," a homeowner yelled from his front steps. Hey guys, I've just reseeded that, he added. There was some momentary awkward shuffling and mumbling, but the man's frustration was short-lived, acknowledging that his thanks to the moving press packs with a thumbs up, which was returned by Mr. Morrison, who then continued.
Oh my God.
I do like the concept that the Prime Minister just stood on a random person's front lawn to do this
It's just like,
announcement.
what? We can renovate loads of houses. Like this fuckers. Like
this ugly fucking disgusting house.
This one, I rolled a dice. We're going to fix it right on up. And by fix it right on up, we mean giving him a lot of money to do whatever he wants with.
We mean treading all over his just reseeded grass.
Well,
it just seems funny
it's going to get
like,
replaced with a gazebo soon, so that's fine.
Clearly, if you're the Prime Minister, you can run a press conference wherever you want without getting permission from the owner of that property.
Well, I mean, I watch Frost Nixon. I know if the Prime Minister does something, then it's not illegal, so he can do whatever the fuck he wants,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. So he can do the press conference on a random dude's front lawn.
Yeah.
For no reason. Look, there's not much more to the article because the rest of it's kind of just talking about the grant, which the grant is giving money to people who already have a lot of money to put a renovation on their house, which doesn't seem ideal to me. But anyway, that's politics. I just like the Prime Minister getting yelled at to get off someone's lawn mid-press conference, which was streamed live on the ABC.
It's very cathartic.
It is very cathartic indeed.
Do you remember when Pokemon Go came out and that park in Rhodes got destroyed?
Yeah, I wonder what's happened to that now.
I don't know. I wonder if it's grown back again. They would have had to have like a whole grass reconstitution effort after like a month of feet. Just
absolutely just
demolished the place.
Everywhere on that. Does Pokemon Go still exist?
Oh yeah, fully. I see news articles about it from time to time.
Right. I see.
On the lame websites I frequent.
Do you have another article?
I do.
A short one?
I've got a good closing article.
Let's have a nice close.
This one was also sent to me by my dad, as all good things are.
God, your dad's doing a lot of work this week.
He's doing all of it. It's like he
doesn't...
Busy
man.
Yeah, he's like a full working doctor, so I don't know where he finds the time.
There you go.
This is from the Courier Mail. And he also sent me an apology with this, saying, sorry if you can't see it, it's behind a paywall. And I was like, oh no, Dad, I can get around that. Because you raised me well to not pay Rupert for things.
Absolutely.
In for the kill. Wombat's violent reign of terror on Dubbo family.
So we've got a wholesome lonely groper and a home invading wombat. That's beautiful.
A family in New South Wales' Central West say that they are lucky to be alive after they were viciously attacked by a Terminator-like wombat. Jeanette Ambrose lives in the bush near Dubbo and regularly interacts with and cares for native animals. She has been living on the property, known as the Daybreak Wildlife Sanctuary, for 40 years, and during that time she has hand-reared some of the wombats that play the character Fatso on the long-running series A Country Practice.
Does that show still exist?
Apparently.
Wow.
Maybe this was in the part. Maybe these are ex-wombats. Who knows?
Sure.
I don't know how long wombats live. Jeanette is no stranger to the iconic Aussie marsupial, which is why she was delighted when her daughter Kim, who was in the cabin on the property, called her one morning to tell her there was a wombat wandering around. But just moments later, Jeanette discovered that this particular wombat was out for blood.
Oh dear.
He looked at me and just dived to get past me, and I held him for a long time while screaming out to Nazarena, my 11-year-old great-granddaughter, not to let him get you. And then he started biting me, the 78-year-old told Dubbo Photo News. He'd bite big pieces of my leg, and so he ran to...
excuse me?
So she ran to get help. Meanwhile, he was biting me up to my knees.
Just straight up biting chunks out of this person's limbs.
Yeah, there's photos. It looks pretty fucking There's blood everywhere.
That's gruesome.
Yeah, he fully is.
That's gross.
They're not kidding about this wombat. It's a killer.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like, okay, well, the wombat's just going to charge them, as wombats want to. I didn't expect a wombat to be literally mauling people.
No, it fully is. Kim, who was still recovering after recently breaking her ankle, rushed out of her cabin after hearing the screams and found the wombat mauling her mum.
It's a serial killer wombat.
Yeah. I I didn't realize just how dark this story would get, but I kind of love it. I feel like it's a nice antithesis to the rest of the show.
It's grim.
As soon as the animal locked eyes on Kim, it rushed and knocked her over before viciously ripping into the back of her legs. I shoved my hand down to protect myself, offering him my hand because I knew he was going to keep gouging, she told the newspaper.
Yikes.
He was near my femoral artery, so I had to have the guts to shove my hand down, so then he got my finger and bit it down until he exposed the bone.
Oh,
This is like, okay, this woman I think is genuinely very intelligent because he was like, he's biting where he's going to kill me, so I'm going to give him a less important part of my body to bite. That takes a lot of... I wouldn't know to do that.
Look, see, it's like if this lady was getting attacked by a shark and the shark was like, you know, starting to like nom on her chest or region, she'd be like, hey, have my left leg, which is my ganky leg anyway. That's where my knee is bad, but you can have this. This
one's for you. This is my...
That's specially for you.
You know like, how lizards will like lose their tails? I think we all need to pick a limb. That we're just like, if push comes to shove, this is the one.
A limb that we're willing to get rid of, should we be attacked by... It could be a wombat, it could be a groper, it could be any other animal.
Any creature.
Which limb would you be willing to give up if you were in that situation, Chris?
I would... I go to say left hand, but I like having both hands, so I think probably a leg, I think. I'd lose a leg.
Yeah, I would lose a leg too, I think. I would...
Does a dick count as a limb? I don't think so. I'd lose that.
No.
That seems the least useful. By this point, Kim's daughter Gemma had been woken up and rushed outside in her pajamas to see what all the commotion was. After realizing her family was under attack from a bloodthirsty beast, she sprung into action, grabbing a plank of wood and hitting the wombat in an attempt to save her mum. Her action succeeded in getting the wombat off Kim, but it now meant the marsupial's attention was on her.
So how many people at this stage has this wombat targeted? Is this the third person?
Yes.
Christ on a bicycle.
And it has drawn blood from the first two.
Jesus.
The animal knocked her over and started biting her legs, thighs, and bum, with Gemma saying she was screaming for her life. It's like he knew where to bite. He was in it for the kill. He was totally in for the kill, she said. Jeanette agreed.
This wombat is trained. This isn't the first time this wombat has murdered someone.
This is a wombat trained by, like, the CIA for war.
Sure.
Jeanette agreed, telling Dubbo Photo News that in this moment they thought they might not make it out alive. She said the wombat was so vicious it would have bitten our noses off if it reached our faces. And there is photos of, like, the people's legs, and they are pretty fucked up.
Right. Because a wombat bite wouldn't be like a nice clean nip off like a shark bite would be.
No, because wombats have like rat teeth.
Wombat bite would be like, it'd be like, I don't know, like a...
It'd be like shearing off flesh.
Bits of pieces of... It's like, okay, let's say you've got a carrot, right? A shark bite would be if you chopped the carrot directly in half with a knife.
Whereas a wombat bite is like if you stabbed the carrot over and over and over again.
A wombat bite is like if you got a cheese grater and grated down the carrot halfway.
Oh, Alison, I'm going to have to put a trigger warning on this episode, I think, for gore.
Yeah.
I actually will do that.
I'm talking about carrots.
Talking about carrots, not human flesh.
At this stage.
Kim thought her daughter was going to die as she watched the wombat continue its attack. Despite having just rebroken her ankle, she hobbled over, grabbed a shovel, and hit the wombat. The animal lunged at Kim, pushing her to the ground. It was at this point that she knew what to do. All of a sudden, I understood I had to grab him by the ear and head and lie down on his back. It was like watching Steve Irwin wrestle crocodiles that made me think of it. By now, Gemma's husband...
She's brawled with a wombat before. She's just pretending she hasn't.
These people are all genuine badasses. I need you to get...
Absolutely.
How
Wombat
cool
Fight
all
Club,
of these
that's what they
people
do
are.
in their free time.
All of a sudden, by now, Gemma's husband, who was working inside, had been alerted to the attack, as had one of the neighbours. The two men helped Kim hold the wombat down as Jeanette ran to grab an axe and put an end to the wombat's reign of terror.
Oh, gee. Is it okay to slay a wombat with an axe?
I think if the wombat is genuinely trying to slay you and your entire family, you're allowed to slay the wombat.
At that point, it's self-defense.
Yeah.
At that point, it's self-defense.
I think they gave this wombat a lot of chances.
The wombat could have said, look, I'm really sorry for goring your leg. I regret my actions. I'm going to go home now and make an apology video and post it to YouTube. I'll be crying wearing a tracksuit in my apology video.
Sorry, I did try to kill 3 people, but...
But look, I'm really sorry and I regret my actions, and I will be monetizing this video on YouTube.
Please don't hit me with an axe. During all the commotion, Jeanette's great-granddaughter had called the ambulance and paramedics arrived to help the family. End of article. I love the laissez-faire tone of this. It's just like such a chillingly casual description of an attempted murder of 3 people.
Yeah, right.
And then a successful murder of 1 wombat.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Perhaps what's really happened here is a conspiracy. Someone went a little bit nutso with the axe and they accidentally killed the wombat, and they're like, shit, how can we make this look like it was, justified murder of a wombat, not like unjustified murder of a wombat. And then they just started hacking their own and their family's legs.
Their legs wounds look a lot like axe wounds. It's interesting.
They just start, hacking each other's legs with the axe to make it look like it was a justifiable homicide.
Well, they did say that they'd been training wombats for many moons, so this may be like a wombat plantation, and one of the wombats finally decided to stand up for what's right and kill all of them.
Exactly.
And if that is the situation, then rip wombat. We support your cause.
Yeah, well, exactly. Fucking... What a weird wombat.
Yeah.
Okay, like, wombats can injure people, but usually it's because people crash their car into wombats, and wombats are solid like a brick.
This could be the first zombie wombat.
Frankly, I don't know about any other Australians out there listening to this, but I've never heard of a wombat mauling people.
Wombats always struck me as very similar to... Wombats always seem fairly similar to dogs in terms of behaviour, and like dogs do that sometimes, so I can see there's like a spectrum.
But wombats, unlike a dog though, a wombat is like as dense as like dark matter, and it just barrels into people, and that's how it does its damage.
It's a living cannonball, yes. They don't normally need to use the sharp bits.
Whereas a dog's main weapon is its teeth.
Its face, yeah. It's got a deadly face.
Exactly.
It's got a face that kills.
Now I'm going to worry about getting mauled to death by a wombat, so that's good.
Well, I think that's wise, and if I can impart anything through this show, it's that be careful of wombats. They will try to kill you.
Well, like everything in Australia.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm sorry for how gory it got at the end there. I didn't realise that would happen. I should probably read these articles in advance.
Well, it was a good article.
It was very interesting.
What a way to end, eh?
You can find us on Twitter or Instagram at Red Menace Cast, or on Facebook at the Red Menace Podcast. You can find our merchandise on tpublic.com, search the Red Menace Podcast. Don't kill wombats unless they have been trying to kill you for like several minutes. Like, don't...
Yeah. Kill you and your family members. Otherwise, just let it make its apology video.
Yeah, let it be. Fuck. Don't kill. Violence is bad. Hot take.
Yeah.
Except for police. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good luck and good night. Wizards unite. Lizards unite. Black Lives Matter. All that. Bye.
Indeed. Bye.